This is Mental Forge, where weakness burns and warriors are built. Act as if you're guided by God's purpose. What if I told you that the single most powerful force in human achievement is not intelligence, not talent, not even opportunity, but something far more profound? What if the difference between those who create extraordinary lives and those who settle for mediocrity lies in one fundamental shift in consciousness? What if you could tap into the same divine guidance that propelled history's greatest achievers to unimaginable heights? Today, you're about to discover the secret that transformed ordinary individuals into legends. You're about to learn how to act as if you're guided by God's purpose, and in doing so, unlock a power within yourself that will revolutionize every aspect of your existence. This isn't about wishful thinking or blind faith. This is about aligning yourself with the universal principles that govern success, abundance, and fulfillment. Throughout history, every great achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of triumph has come from individuals who understood this profound truth. When you align your actions with divine purpose, you become unstoppable. Henry Ford didn't just build cars, he acted as if he was divinely appointed to revolutionize transportation. Thomas Edison didn't just experiment with electricity, he conducted himself as if he was chosen to illuminate the world. Abraham Lincoln didn't just preserve the Union, he carried himself as if he was ordained to heal a broken nation. These weren't accidents. These weren't coincidences. These were the natural results of men who understood how to harness the most powerful force in the universe. Purposeful action, backed by unwavering faith. You're about to embark on a journey that will fundamentally alter how you see yourself, how you approach challenges, and how you create results in your life. We'll explore the psychological mechanisms that make this principle so powerful, the historical examples that prove its effectiveness, and most importantly, the exact steps you can take to implement this transformational approach starting today. If this resonates with you and you want more life-changing content like this, make sure to subscribe, because what you're about to learn has the power to completely rewrite your destiny. Let's begin with a fundamental truth that Napoleon Hill discovered after studying 500 of the most successful people of his time. He found that every single one of them possessed what he called definiteness of purpose. But more than that, they acted as if their purpose was divinely ordained. They didn't hope for success. They didn't wish for breakthrough. They moved through the world with the absolute certainty that they were fulfilling a higher calling. This isn't about religious belief, though it can be. This is about understanding that when you align your actions with purpose that feels larger than yourself, you access a level of power, confidence, and clarity that transforms everything. Your subconscious mind begins to work differently. Your decision-making becomes razor-sharp. Your persistence becomes unbreakable. Your very presence changes. Consider Henry Ford, a man who revolutionized not just transportation, but the entire concept of manufacturing. When Ford declared that he would build a car for the common man, people thought he was insane. The experts told him it was impossible. The critics laughed at his vision. But Ford didn't just believe in his idea, he acted as if he was divinely appointed to make it happen. He moved through each day with the absolute certainty that his vision would become reality. This certainty wasn't arrogance, it was alignment. Ford understood that his purpose was bigger than himself, that he was serving something greater, and this understanding gave him access to levels of persistence, creativity, and determination that seemed superhuman to observers. When faced with seemingly impossible challenges in developing the assembly line, Ford didn't see obstacles. He saw puzzles that he was meant to solve. When critics doubted his methods, he didn't waste energy defending himself. He simply continued building toward his vision with unwavering focus. The psychological principle at work here is profound. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, you shift from what psychologists call an external locus of control to an internal locus of control. But more than that, you align with what we might call a transcendent locus of control. You're no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You're no longer derailed by criticism. You're no longer paralyzed by fear of failure because you understand that you're part of something larger than your individual concerns. James Allen, in his masterwork As a Man Thinketh, wrote that a man is literally what he thinks. But acting as if you're guided by God's purpose takes this principle to the next level. You become not just what you think, but what you serve. Your identity expands beyond your personal limitations and encompasses the magnitude of your purpose. This is why Thomas Edison could fail 10,000 ways in developing the light bulb and never consider quitting. He wasn't just trying to create a product, he was fulfilling what he saw as his divine assignment to bring light to the world. Each failure wasn't a setback, it was information, a step closer to completing his mission. Edison didn't have more talent than other inventors of his time, he had something more powerful. Absolute certainty that he was meant to solve this problem. The same principle transformed a poor farm boy named Andrew Carnegie into one of the wealthiest men in history. Carnegie didn't just want to make money, he acted as if he was chosen to demonstrate that anyone, regardless of background, could achieve extraordinary success through the application of definite purpose and unwavering faith. He carried himself with the confidence of a man on a divine mission, and this confidence attracted opportunities, partnerships, and resources that seemed to flow to him effortlessly. But here's what most people miss about this principle. Acting as if you're guided by God's purpose isn't about waiting for divine intervention. It's about taking massive, consistent action from a place of absolute certainty about your worthiness and your mission. It's about conducting yourself with the dignity, confidence, and determination of someone who knows they're exactly where they're supposed to be, doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Wallace Wattles, in The Science of Getting Rich, explained that there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and that by impressing our thoughts upon this substance, we can cause the thing we think about to be created. But thinking alone isn't enough. We must act. We must move. We must conduct ourselves as if the universe is conspiring to help us achieve our purpose. This brings us to the first practical application of this principle. Starting today, you must begin to identify what feels like your divine purpose. This isn't necessarily some grand, world-changing mission, though it might be. Your purpose might be to raise children who will contribute positively to the world. It might be to create art that inspires others. It might be to build a business that solves problems and creates value. The key is that it must feel larger than your personal comfort and security. Once you've identified this purpose, you must begin to act as if its fulfillment is inevitable. This means making decisions from the perspective of someone who is absolutely certain they will succeed. When faced with obstacles, ask yourself, how would someone who is divinely guided handle this situation? When confronted with criticism or doubt, respond as someone who knows they're on the right path would respond. Theodore Roosevelt embodied this principle throughout his remarkable life. Whether he was leading the Rough Riders up San Juan Hill, building the Panama Canal, or serving as president, Roosevelt acted with the absolute conviction that he was meant to tackle the impossible. He didn't have more courage than other men, he had something more powerful, the unshakable belief that he was fulfilling his divine assignment. Roosevelt's famous quote, "Believe you can, and you're halfway there," only tells part of the story. The complete truth is, act as if you're divinely appointed to succeed, and you're not halfway there. You're already there in consciousness, and the physical manifestation becomes inevitable. The subconscious mind, as Joseph Murphy explained in The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, doesn't distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. When you consistently act as if you're guided by divine purpose, your subconscious begins to accept this as truth and starts working 24 hours a day to make it your reality. It begins to notice opportunities you would have missed. It begins to attract circumstances that support your mission. It begins to give you insights and ideas that seem to come from beyond your normal thinking. This is exactly why thousands of subscribers keep coming back for more transformational insights like this. If you're ready to join them and continue this journey of purposeful transformation, hit that subscribe button now, because we're just getting started with the life-changing principles you need to know. Let's examine how this principle works in the realm of wealth creation, because nothing reveals the power of purposeful action like financial success. Bob Proctor, in You Were Born Rich, taught that we become what we think about most of the time. But those who achieve extraordinary wealth don't just think about money. They act as if they're divinely appointed to demonstrate prosperity principles and create value in the world. Consider John D. Rockefeller, a man who started with nothing and became the wealthiest person in modern history. Rockefeller didn't just want to make money, he acted as if he was chosen to show the world how business could be conducted with both profit and principle. He approached every deal, every decision, every challenge with the calm certainty of a man who knew he was fulfilling a higher purpose. This certainty allowed Rockefeller to think strategically when others panicked. During economic downturns, while his competitors were consumed with fear, Rockefeller was acquiring assets at bargain prices because he knew that his mission required him to build something lasting. He acted as if temporary setbacks were simply tests of his resolve, opportunities to demonstrate his unwavering commitment to his purpose. The psychological principle at work here is what modern researchers call self-efficacy. But it goes deeper than confidence in your abilities. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, you develop what we might call transcendent efficacy, the absolute certainty that the universe itself is supporting your mission. This level of certainty allows you to take risks that others won't take, persist when others quit, and maintain clarity when others are confused. Charles F. Honnell, in the Master Key System, explained that we must learn to think big enough to hold our dreams and act boldly enough to make them real. But acting as if you're guided by God's purpose takes this principle to its ultimate expression. You begin to think, not just big, but divinely inspired thoughts. You begin to act, not just boldly, but with the confidence of someone who knows they cannot ultimately fail because they're aligned with universal principles. This brings us to a crucial understanding. Acting as if you're guided by divine purpose doesn't mean you won't face challenges, setbacks, or temporary defeats. It means you'll interpret these experiences differently. Instead of seeing them as evidence that you should quit, you'll see them as refinement processes, opportunities to develop the character and skills necessary to fulfill your mission. Winston Churchill embodied this understanding during Britain's darkest hour in World War II. When the Nazi war machine seemed unstoppable, when experts predicted Britain's inevitable defeat, Churchill acted as if he was divinely appointed to preserve freedom and democracy. He didn't hope for victory. He conducted himself with the absolute certainty that right would triumph over might, that purpose would overcome power. Churchill's famous words, "Never give in, never give in, never, never, never," weren't just inspirational rhetoric. They were the natural expression of a man who understood that his mission was bigger than his personal comfort or safety. He acted as if the survival of civilization itself depended on his unwavering resolve, and this level of purpose gave him access to reserves of strength, wisdom, and inspiration that seemed superhuman to those around him. The same principle that sustained Churchill through Britain's finest hour can sustain you through your greatest challenges. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, temporary setbacks become stepping stones. Criticism becomes confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. Fear becomes fuel for even more determined action. David J. Schwartz, in The Magic of Thinking Big, taught that success is determined by the size of your thinking. But thinking big isn't enough. You must act as if your biggest thoughts are divinely inspired visions that you're meant to make real. You must conduct yourself with the dignity and determination of someone who knows they're fulfilling a cosmic assignment. This shift in consciousness creates what Napoleon Hill called the mastermind principle. But at an individual level, when you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, you align your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and what Hill called infinite intelligence. This alignment creates a synergy that multiplies your effectiveness exponentially. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle 2,000 years ago when he wrote in his Meditations that we must act for the common good as if we were born to work together. Aurelius didn't just rule an empire, he acted as if he was divinely appointed to demonstrate how power could be used wisely and justly. This understanding gave him the strength to face plagues, wars, and personal tragedies with unwavering composure and wisdom. The practical application of this principle in your daily life begins with a fundamental shift in how you approach each day. Instead of waking up and asking what you need to do, wake up asking how you can serve your divine purpose today. Instead of making decisions based on what's convenient or comfortable, make decisions based on what your purpose requires. This doesn't mean you become reckless or ignore practical considerations. It means you make practical decisions from an elevated perspective. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, you still plan carefully, work diligently, and manage resources wisely. But you do these things with the confidence of someone who knows their efforts are aligned with universal principles. Before we continue with the next powerful principle, take a moment to subscribe for more transformational insights that can revolutionize your approach to success and fulfillment, because what we're about to explore next will show you exactly how to implement this consciousness shift in your specific situation. The key to making this transformation practical lies in understanding what Earl Nightingale called the strangest secret. We become what we think about most of the time. But acting as if you're guided by God's purpose adds a crucial dimension to this truth. You must not only think about your purpose, you must embody it. You must carry yourself, speak, decide, and act as if your purpose is already your reality. This embodiment principle is what separated Leonardo da Vinci from other artists of his time. Da Vinci didn't just want to create beautiful art. He acted as if he was divinely appointed to unlock the secrets of human potential through artistic and scientific exploration. This sense of divine mission drove him to study anatomy, engineering, astronomy, and countless other fields because he understood that his purpose required him to develop capabilities that seemed impossible to his contemporaries. Da Vinci's notebooks reveal a man who approached each project, each experiment, each artistic endeavor as if he were uncovering divine truths that were meant to benefit all humanity. This perspective gave him the patience to observe nature with unprecedented detail, the persistence to solve problems that had puzzled thinkers for centuries, and the vision to conceive inventions that wouldn't be built for hundreds of years. The same principle of embodied purpose can transform your approach to any field or endeavor. When you act as if you're divinely guided to excel in your chosen area, you begin to approach learning differently. Instead of studying just enough to get by, you study as if you're preparing to serve at the highest level. Instead of practicing until you're competent, you practice as if you're preparing to demonstrate divine potential through your work. This shift in approach creates what Tony Robbins calls a breakthrough state, but it goes deeper than emotional intensity. When you embody divine purpose, you access what we might call transcendent state, where your personal limitations dissolve and you're operating from a level of capability that surprises even yourself. Benjamin Franklin exemplified this principle throughout his extraordinary life. Franklin didn't just want to be successful. He acted as if he was chosen to demonstrate how an individual could contribute to human progress through continuous learning and improvement. This sense of divine assignment led him to master printing, writing, diplomacy, science, and invention with equal dedication, because he understood that his purpose required him to develop comprehensive capability. Franklin's approach to self-improvement wasn't driven by ego or competition. It was driven by a sense of divine responsibility. He acted as if his character development and skill acquisition were not just personal benefits, but contributions to a larger purpose that would benefit future generations. This understanding gave him the motivation to persist through decades of disciplined improvement that transformed him from a poor candlemaker's son into one of history's most influential figures. The psychological mechanism at work here is profound. When you act as if you're fulfilling divine purpose, you shift from what psychologists call a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. But more than that, you develop what we might call a stewardship mindset. You begin to see your talents, opportunities, and resources not as personal possessions, but as tools entrusted to you for a higher purpose. This shift eliminates many of the mental barriers that hold people back. Fear of failure diminishes because you understand that temporary setbacks are part of the learning process required to fulfill your mission. Fear of success disappears because you recognize that achievement is not about personal glorification, but about demonstrating divine potential. Fear of criticism fades because you know that those who are fulfilling their purpose will always face opposition from those who are not. Napoleon Bonaparte understood this principle when he declared that impossible is not French. Napoleon didn't just want to conquer territory. He acted as if he was divinely appointed to spread the principles of the revolution throughout Europe. This sense of cosmic mission gave him the audacity to take on coalitions of established powers, the strategic vision to win seemingly impossible campaigns, and the magnetic leadership that inspired ordinary soldiers to achieve extraordinary feats. Napoleon's downfall came not from a failure of the principle, but from a distortion of it. When his sense of divine purpose became corrupted by personal ego and the desire for power for its own sake, he lost the alignment that had made him invincible. This teaches us a crucial lesson. Acting as if you're guided by God's purpose requires constant vigilance to ensure that your mission remains focused on service rather than self-aggrandizement. The practical application of this principle requires you to regularly examine your motivations and realign your actions with service-oriented purpose. Ask yourself daily, Am I acting from ego or from purpose? Am I seeking to serve or to be served? Am I building something that will benefit others or just myself? These questions keep you aligned with the transcendent power that makes extraordinary achievement possible. Thomas J. Stanley, in The Millionaire Mind, discovered that most millionaires share certain thinking patterns and behaviors, but the wealthiest among them possess something more, a sense that their success serves a purpose larger than personal accumulation. They act as if they're stewards of resources that they're meant to multiply and deploy for the benefit of others. This stewardship consciousness creates what Robert Kiyosaki calls the cash flow quadrant shift, but at the deepest level. When you act as if you're divinely guided to create and multiply wealth, you begin to think like an owner and investor, rather than an employee or self-employed person. You begin to build systems and assets rather than just trading time for money, because you understand that your purpose requires you to create lasting value. The transformation begins in your daily decisions. When faced with the choice between what's easy and what your purpose requires, you choose purpose. When confronted with the option to take shortcuts or to build something sustainable, you choose sustainability. When presented with opportunities to serve yourself or serve others, you choose service, knowing that this alignment multiplies your own abundance. This brings us to one of the most powerful applications of this principle: decision-making. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, your decision-making becomes both simpler and more effective. Instead of agonizing over choices, you ask, which option best serves my divine purpose? The answer usually becomes clear immediately, and you can move forward with confidence. Julius Caesar demonstrated this principle when he crossed the Rubicon River with his army, knowing that this action would either make him the master of Rome or cost him his life. Caesar didn't make this decision lightly, but once he determined that his purpose required bold action, he moved forward without hesitation. His famous words, "The die is cast," reflected not recklessness, but the certainty of a man who knew he was fulfilling his destiny. Caesar's success came not from superior military tactics alone, though he was a brilliant strategist, but from his absolute conviction that he was meant to reshape the Roman world. This conviction gave him the audacity to take risks that others wouldn't take, the persistence to continue campaigns that others would abandon, and the magnetic presence that inspired fierce loyalty in his followers. The same decisiveness can transform your approach to opportunities and challenges. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, you develop what we might call divine decisiveness, the ability to make important decisions quickly and confidently because you have a clear standard for evaluation. Does this serve my purpose or not? This doesn't mean you become impulsive or ignore important information. It means you gather the necessary facts quickly, apply your purpose-based criteria, and move forward without the paralysis that comes from overthinking. You trust that your purpose alignment will guide you to correct decisions more reliably than endless analysis. Nikola Tesla embodied this principle in his approach to invention and discovery. Tesla didn't just want to understand electricity. He acted as if he was divinely appointed to unlock the electrical secrets that would transform human civilization. This sense of cosmic mission gave him the vision to conceive technologies that wouldn't be fully understood or implemented for decades after his death. Tesla's approach to invention was unique because he acted as if the solutions to electrical challenges already existed in the realm of divine knowledge, and his job was simply to receive and translate these insights into practical applications. This perspective allowed him to visualize complete inventions in his mind, test them mentally, and refine them before ever building physical prototypes. The principle Tesla demonstrated is available to anyone who acts as if they're divinely guided in their field of expertise. When you approach problems as if the solutions already exist in the realm of infinite intelligence, and your job is to align yourself to receive these insights, you begin to access levels of creativity and innovation that seem supernatural to others. This is why acting as if you're guided by God's purpose is so transformational. It shifts you from trying to force solutions through personal effort alone to aligning yourself to receive solutions from infinite intelligence. Your personal effort becomes focused and amplified rather than scattered and depleted. As we wrap up this transformational journey, subscribe to ensure you never miss content that could completely transform your destiny, because the principles we've explored today are just the beginning of what's possible when you align your life with divine purpose. The time has come for practical implementation. Here are 3 specific actions you can take within the next 24 hours to begin acting as if you're guided by God's purpose. First, identify one area of your life where you've been playing small or acting from fear rather than faith. This might be your career, your relationships, your health, or your financial situation. Once you've identified this area, ask yourself, if I truly believed I was divinely guided to excel in this area, how would I act differently? What specific steps would I take? What decisions would I make? Write down these insights and begin implementing them immediately. Second, create what I call a divine purpose statement. This is not just a goal or a wish, but a declaration of the specific way you believe you're meant to serve in the world. Write it in present tense, as if it's already your reality. For example, I am divinely guided to inspire others through my artistic creations, or I am divinely appointed to build businesses that solve important problems and create meaningful employment. Read this statement every morning and let it guide your daily decisions and actions. Third, begin each day with what I call purpose alignment meditation. Spend 10 minutes each morning in quiet reflection, asking for guidance on how to best serve your divine purpose that day. Don't just ask for success or blessing. Ask for clarity on how you can be of service. Listen for insights, ideas, or impressions that come to you during this quiet time, and trust these insights enough to act on them. The identity shift exercise that will reinforce this transformation is simple but powerful. Throughout each day, catch yourself when you're acting from limitation, fear, or small thinking. In those moments, pause and ask, how would someone who is divinely guided handle this situation? Then adjust your thoughts, words, and actions to align with that higher standard. Do this consistently, and you'll find that acting as if you're guided by divine purpose becomes your natural way of being. Remember, the great achievers throughout history weren't superhuman. They simply understood and applied the principle we've explored today. They acted as if they were guided by divine purpose, and this alignment gave them access to levels of power, wisdom, and effectiveness that seemed miraculous to others, but were actually the natural result of cosmic alignment. Henry Ford revolutionized transportation by acting as if he was meant to put the world on wheels. Thomas Edison illuminated the world by acting as if he was chosen to harness the power of electricity. Andrew Carnegie demonstrated that anyone could achieve wealth by acting as if he was appointed to prove the principles of success. Abraham Lincoln preserved the Union by acting as if he was ordained to heal a divided nation. You have access to the same principle that guided these giants of achievement. The same infinite intelligence that inspired their breakthroughs is available to guide your success. The same divine purpose that empowered their persistence can fuel your determination. The same cosmic alignment that made them unstoppable can make you unstoppable. The only question that remains is this: will you continue to act from limitation? Or will you begin today to act as if you're guided by God's purpose? Will you continue to play small, or will you step into the magnificent destiny that awaits you? Will you continue to be ordinary, or will you begin to demonstrate the extraordinary potential that lies within you? The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because every moment you delay is a moment of divine potential unused. Every day you wait is a day of purpose unfulfilled. Every week you hesitate is a week of destiny postponed. You were not created to live a mediocre life. You were not designed to struggle in limitation. You were not meant to die with your music still inside you. You were created to demonstrate divine potential through human expression. You were designed to prove that ordinary individuals can achieve extraordinary results when they align with infinite intelligence. You were meant to leave this world better than you found it. Act as if you're guided by God's purpose, and watch as your life transforms from ordinary to extraordinary, from limited to unlimited, from fearful to powerful, from purposeless to purposeful. The time is now. The power is within you. The purpose is calling you. Begin today. Act with divine confidence. Move with cosmic certainty. Live with transcendent purpose. Your extraordinary life is waiting for you to claim it. Act as if you're guided by God's purpose, and you will be. But let me share with you the deeper mechanics of why this principle works so powerfully, because understanding the science behind divine alignment will strengthen your faith and accelerate your results. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, You activate what neuroscientists call the reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information and determines what you notice and what you ignore. This system begins to highlight opportunities, resources, and connections that support your divine mission, while filtering out distractions that would derail lesser individuals. Mahatma Gandhi demonstrated this principle when he acted as if he was divinely appointed to free India through non-violent resistance. Gandhi didn't have armies, wealth, or political power in the traditional sense, but he had something more powerful: absolute certainty that his purpose aligned with universal justice. This certainty activated not only his own reticular activating system but influenced millions of others to see possibilities they had never considered before. Gandhi's approach to seemingly impossible challenges reveals the true power of purpose-driven action. When faced with the might of the British Empire, instead of feeling overwhelmed, Gandhi acted as if he had access to infinite resources through his divine alignment. He developed strategies like the Salt March that turned simple acts of civil disobedience into powerful symbols of resistance that captured the world's attention and ultimately changed history. The psychological principle Gandhi employed is what we might call purpose multiplication. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, your individual efforts become multiplied by the efforts of others who are inspired by your certainty and commitment. Your personal power becomes amplified by what Napoleon Hill called the mastermind principle, but at a cosmic level. This brings us to a crucial understanding about wealth creation that most people completely miss. True wealth isn't just about accumulating money or assets. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts abundance because they're fulfilling their divine purpose. When you act as if you're divinely guided to create wealth, you begin to think, decide, and act in ways that align with universal prosperity principles. Alexander the Great understood this principle when he set out to conquer the known world before his 25th birthday. Alexander didn't just want territory or treasure. He acted as if he was divinely appointed to spread Greek culture and knowledge throughout the civilized world. This sense of cosmic mission gave him the audacity to attack forces that outnumbered his own, the strategic brilliance to win seemingly impossible battles, and the magnetic leadership that kept his army loyal through years of continuous campaign. Alexander's success came from what we might call divine audacity, the willingness to attempt what others consider impossible because you know you're fulfilling a higher purpose. This audacity isn't recklessness, it's calculated boldness backed by absolute faith in your divine alignment. When you possess this level of certainty, you begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles, solutions where others see problems, and pathways where others see dead ends. The practical application of divine audacity in your life begins with expanding your definition of what's possible. Most people limit their goals to what they think they can achieve through their own efforts alone. But when you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you begin to set goals that require divine assistance to accomplish. This shift forces you to develop faith, creativity, and persistence at levels you never knew you possessed. Consider how this principle applies to your financial situation. If you're currently earning $50,000 per year and you set a goal to earn $60,000, you're thinking from limitation. But if you act as if you're divinely guided to demonstrate prosperity principles, you might set a goal to earn $500,000 or even $5 million. This larger goal forces you to think differently, act differently, and become a different person in the process. The key insight here is that God's purpose for your life is always bigger than your personal comfort zone. Divine assignments require divine growth, and divine growth produces divine results. When you align your goals with what you believe God wants to accomplish through you, you gain access to resources, opportunities, and capabilities that seem miraculous from a limited perspective, but are natural from a divine perspective. This is why Earl Nightingale taught that you become what you think about most of the time, but he also emphasized that your thoughts must be backed by faith and action. Acting as if you're guided by God's purpose takes this principle to its ultimate expression. You don't just think about success. You think the thoughts that someone fulfilling divine purpose would think. You don't just take action. You take the actions that someone on a divine mission would take. The subconscious programming that occurs when you consistently act from divine purpose is profound and permanent. Your self-image begins to expand from someone who hopes for success to someone who expects success because they're fulfilling their cosmic assignment. Your internal dialogue shifts from doubt and limitation to confidence and expectation. Your emotional state transforms from anxiety about outcomes to excitement about service. Bob Proctor taught that we have intellectual, emotional, and physical faculties. But when you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, you activate what we might call your spiritual faculties. These include intuition that seems to come from beyond your normal thinking, timing that appears coincidental but is actually synchronistic, and insights that feel like divine downloads rather than personal discoveries. Napoleon Hill wrote extensively about what he called infinite intelligence, the source of all knowledge and wisdom that becomes accessible to those who align their thoughts and actions with higher purpose. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you're not just accessing your own intelligence, you're tapping into infinite intelligence. This connection explains why purpose-driven individuals often receive breakthrough ideas and solutions that seem to come from beyond their normal capabilities. The historical record is filled with examples of individuals who achieved seemingly impossible results by acting as if they were fulfilling divine assignments. Joan of Arc, a peasant girl with no military training, convinced the French court that she was divinely chosen to drive the English out of France. Her absolute certainty about her mission gave her the confidence to approach royalty, the strategic insight to plan military campaigns, and the inspirational presence to rally demoralized troops to victory. Joan's story illustrates a crucial point about acting as if you're guided by God's purpose. It doesn't matter what your background, education, or current circumstances might be. When you align with divine purpose, you gain access to capabilities that transcend your personal limitations. You begin to operate from your potential rather than your past, from your purpose rather than your problems. This transformation requires what we might call identity upgrades on a regular basis. As your understanding of your divine purpose expands, your sense of who you are and what you're capable of must expand to match. Most people cling to outdated identities that no longer serve their growth, but those who act as if they're guided by divine purpose are willing to continually reinvent themselves to match their expanding mission. The practical exercise for identity upgrading is simple but powerful. Each month, ask yourself, who do I need to become to fulfill my divine purpose at the next level? What knowledge do I need to acquire? What skills do I need to develop? What habits do I need to adopt? What relationships do I need to cultivate? What beliefs do I need to upgrade? Then take specific action to close these gaps. This continuous growth mindset is what separated ordinary achievers from legendary achievers throughout history. Charles M. Schwab didn't just run a steel company, he acted as if he was divinely appointed to demonstrate how industrial leadership could combine efficiency with humanity. This perspective drove him to continuously develop new management approaches, communication skills, and strategic thinking capabilities that made him one of the highest-paid executives of his era. Schwab's approach to leadership reveals another crucial aspect of acting, as if you're guided by divine purpose. It naturally makes you a better leader because you're serving something larger than yourself. When people sense that you're genuinely committed to a higher purpose, they're naturally drawn to follow you. Your certainty becomes contagious. Your vision becomes compelling. Your commitment becomes inspiring. This leadership dimension of divine purpose is particularly relevant in today's world, where people are hungry for authentic leadership that serves something greater than profit or power. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose in whatever role you occupy, whether as a parent, employee, business owner, or community member, you begin to influence others in positive ways that create ripple effects far beyond what you can see or measure. The multiplication effect of purpose-driven leadership is exponential rather than linear. When you inspire one person to act from their divine purpose, they go on to inspire others, who inspire others, creating an expanding circle of positive influence that can literally change the world. This is how individual transformation becomes social transformation, how personal purpose becomes collective purpose. But this level of influence requires what we might call purified motivation. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you must regularly examine your motives to ensure they remain aligned with service rather than ego. The moment your divine purpose becomes contaminated with self-aggrandizement or personal ambition disconnected from service, you lose the cosmic alignment that made you powerful in the first place. This is why humility is such a crucial component of acting as if you're guided by divine purpose. True humility isn't self-deprecation or false modesty. It's the accurate assessment that your capabilities come from your alignment with infinite intelligence rather than from your personal brilliance. This understanding keeps you teachable, keeps you growing, and keeps you connected to the source of your power. The daily practice of humble confidence is essential for maintaining your divine alignment. Each morning, acknowledge that whatever you accomplish that day will be the result of divine guidance working through your dedicated efforts. Each evening, give gratitude for the opportunities you had to serve your purpose and ask for wisdom about how to serve more effectively tomorrow. This daily rhythm of humble confidence creates what we might call sustained divine alignment. Instead of sporadic bursts of purpose-driven activity, followed by periods of doubt or confusion, you maintain consistent connection to your divine guidance. This consistency compounds over time, creating momentum that becomes increasingly difficult to stop or derail. The compounding effect of consistent divine alignment is where the true magic happens. Each day of purpose-driven action builds upon the previous day. Each decision made from divine guidance creates a foundation for better decisions. Each success achieved through purposeful action increases your capacity for greater success. Over months and years, this compounding creates results that seem miraculous to outside observers, but feel natural to those who understand the principle. This is why acting as if you're guided by God's purpose isn't just a success strategy, it's a lifestyle. It's not something you do occasionally when you need breakthrough results. It's how you approach every aspect of your life consistently. It becomes your identity, rather than just your technique. You don't just use divine guidance, you embody it. You don't just act from purpose occasionally, you live from purpose continuously. The lifestyle transformation that occurs when you fully embrace this principle touches every area of your existence. Your relationships improve because you're approaching them from service rather than selfishness. Your health improves because you understand that your body is a temple that houses your divine purpose and must be maintained accordingly. Your finances improve because you're creating value from divine inspiration rather than just trading time for money. Even your leisure activities become purposeful when you act as if you're guided by divine assignment. Instead of using entertainment to escape from your purpose, you choose recreation that refreshes and prepares you to serve your purpose more effectively. Instead of relationships that drain your energy and distract you from your mission, you cultivate connections with people who support and amplify your divine calling. This holistic alignment creates what we might call integrated success, where every aspect of your life supports and enhances every other aspect. Your work amplifies your relationships. Your relationships energize your work. Your health supports your service. Your service enhances your health. Your spiritual growth increases your material prosperity. Your material prosperity enables greater spiritual service. The integration principle is crucial because most people compartmentalize their lives, trying to achieve success in one area while tolerating failure or mediocrity in others. But when you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you understand that all areas of your life are connected and must be aligned to support your divine mission. This understanding motivates you to pursue excellence across all dimensions of your existence. Excellence in service of divine purpose is different from perfectionism driven by ego or fear. Divine excellence comes from the desire to honor God through the quality of your work and life, not from the need to prove your worth or avoid criticism. This type of excellence is sustainable because it's powered by love and service rather than by anxiety and competition. The sustainable excellence that comes from divine alignment allows you to maintain high performance over decades rather than burning out after short periods of intense effort. You're not depleting your personal resources, trying to force results through willpower alone. Instead, you're aligning with infinite resources and allowing divine energy to flow through your dedicated efforts. This flow state is what athletes call being in the zone, what artists call inspiration, and what business people call being in flow. But when you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you don't just experience these states occasionally. You begin to live in them consistently. Flow becomes your natural state rather than a special experience. Living in divine flow means that your actions feel effortless, even when they're producing extraordinary results. Your work feels like play, even when it's challenging. Your service feels like privilege even when it's demanding. Your growth feels like joy even when it's stretching you beyond your comfort zone. This joyful excellence is the ultimate expression of acting as if you're guided by God's purpose. You're not grimly pursuing success through forced discipline and joyless sacrifice. Instead, you're joyfully expressing your divine nature through purposeful action and loving service. You've discovered that fulfilling God's purpose for your life is not a burden to bear, but a gift to unwrap and share with the world. Your transformation is complete when acting as if you're guided by divine purpose is no longer something you have to remember to do, but something you couldn't imagine not doing. It becomes as natural as breathing, as automatic as your heartbeat, as essential as your existence. You've become who you were always meant to be, doing what you were always meant to do, living how you were always meant to live. This is your destiny. This is your inheritance. This is your divine right. The only question remaining is when you will claim it and begin living the extraordinary life that has been waiting for you all along. The time is now. The power is within you. The purpose is calling you. Answer that call with the full force of your being, and watch as your life becomes a masterpiece of divine expression, a symphony of purposeful action, and a legacy of loving service that will inspire generations yet to come. Act as if you're guided by God's purpose, because you are, and let that truth transform everything about how you live, love, work, and serve in this magnificent world that needs exactly what you have to offer. Now let me reveal to you the most profound secret about divine purpose that separates the truly exceptional from those who merely achieve temporary success. This secret is hidden in plain sight throughout history, demonstrated by every great leader, innovator, and world changer, yet missed by most people because they're looking for complexity when the truth is elegantly simple. The secret is this: when you truly act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you stop trying to get and start focusing on giving. You stop asking what the world can do for you and start asking what you can do for the world. This shift from acquisition to contribution is what transforms ordinary individuals into extraordinary forces of positive change. Consider the life and legacy of Mother Teresa, a woman who possessed no wealth, no political power, no advanced education, yet became one of the most influential people of the 20th century. Mother Teresa acted as if she was divinely appointed to serve the poorest of the poor, and this sense of divine mission gave her the strength to work in conditions that would break most people, the persistence to continue when progress seemed impossible, and the magnetic presence that attracted resources and support from around the world. Mother Teresa's approach to her work reveals the paradox of divine purpose. The more you give of yourself in service to others, the more you receive in return. But this isn't about receiving material rewards, though those often come. It's about receiving the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you're fulfilling your cosmic assignment, the inner peace that comes from alignment with infinite intelligence, and the transcendent joy that comes from expressing divine love through human action. This paradox of purposeful giving explains why so many people who focus solely on personal success feel empty, even when they achieve their goals. They've been trying to fill their inner void with external accomplishments, but the void can only be filled by connecting with something larger than themselves. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you discover that the more you serve, the more fulfilled you become. The practical application of this principle requires a fundamental shift in how you evaluate opportunities and make decisions. Instead of asking, "What's in it for me?" start asking, "How can this serve my divine purpose?" Instead of, "How can I profit?" ask, "How can I contribute?" This shift doesn't mean you ignore practical considerations or work for free. It means you make practical decisions from an elevated perspective that considers both service and sustainability. The beauty of this approach is that when you genuinely focus on contribution, compensation follows naturally. When you act as if you're divinely guided to solve problems and create value for others, people are willing to pay generously for your solutions. When you approach your work as service to a higher purpose, you develop capabilities and insights that make you increasingly valuable in the marketplace. This is why the wealthiest and most successful people throughout history have been those who figured out how to serve the greatest number of people in the most effective ways. Henry Ford became wealthy not by trying to get rich, but by acting as if he was meant to put the world on wheels. His focus on serving transportation needs created wealth as a natural byproduct. Thomas Edison became prosperous not by chasing money, but by acting as if he was chosen to solve humanity's problems through invention. The key insight here is that wealth and success are effects, not causes. They're the natural results of consistently acting as if you're guided by divine purpose in service to others. When you understand this principle, you stop chasing effects and start focusing on causes. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes and start aligning with the universal principles that create outcomes automatically. This alignment with universal principles is what the ancient philosophers called living in harmony with the Tao, what religious traditions call walking in divine will, and what modern success teachers call working with universal laws rather than against them. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you naturally align with these principles because your motivation shifts from selfish acquisition to selfless contribution. The transformation in your daily experience when you make this shift is immediate and profound. Work that once felt like drudgery becomes meaningful service. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming become opportunities to demonstrate divine capabilities. Relationships that once drained your energy become sources of mutual growth and support. Even mundane tasks take on sacred significance when you approach them as expressions of your divine purpose. This sacredness of service is what transforms ordinary work into extraordinary calling. A teacher who acts as if they're divinely appointed to shape young minds approaches lesson planning with the reverence of a priest preparing a sermon. A business person who acts as if they're chosen to create value for customers treats each transaction as an opportunity to serve divine purpose through commercial exchange. A parent who acts as if they're entrusted with stewarding the next generation approaches child-rearing with the dedication of a master craftsperson. When every aspect of your life becomes an expression of divine purpose, you develop what we might call integrated mastery. You're not just excellent in one area while mediocre in others. Instead, your commitment to expressing divine purpose through all your activities elevates your performance across every dimension of your existence. This integrated mastery is what made Renaissance figures like Leonardo da Vinci so exceptional. Da Vinci didn't compartmentalize his life into separate categories of artist, inventor, scientist, and engineer. Instead, he approached every area of study and creation as different expressions of the same divine purpose. To understand and reveal the magnificent design of creation, this integrated approach allowed him to make connections and discoveries that specialized thinkers missed. The same integrated approach is available to you when you act as if you're guided by God's purpose. Your work informs your relationships. Your relationships enhance your creativity. Your creativity improves your problem solving. Your problem solving advances your work. Everything becomes connected in a beautiful symphony of purposeful living. But achieving this level of integration requires what we might call purposeful discipline. This isn't the grim, joyless discipline of forcing yourself to do things you hate. Instead, it's the joyful discipline of consistently choosing actions that align with your divine purpose, even when less aligned options seem easier or more immediately gratifying. Purposeful discipline is what allowed figures like Benjamin Franklin to maintain rigorous schedules of self-improvement for decades without burning out. Franklin didn't see his daily practices of reading, writing, exercising, and skill development as burdens to endure, but as privileges that allowed him to better serve his divine purpose of contributing to human progress. The key to developing purposeful discipline is connecting every action, no matter how small, to your larger sense of divine mission. When you're exercising, you're not just maintaining your body, you're preparing the vessel that houses your divine purpose. When you're learning new skills, you're not just advancing your career, you're developing capabilities that will allow you to serve at higher levels. When you're building relationships, you're not just networking, you're creating connections that will amplify your ability to fulfill your cosmic assignment. This connection between daily actions and cosmic purpose is what makes the difference between those who maintain momentum over decades and those who start strong but fade over time. When your motivation comes from alignment with infinite intelligence rather than from finite willpower, you have access to sustainable energy that doesn't deplete with use. The sustainability principle is crucial because acting as if you're guided by God's purpose isn't a sprint, it's a lifelong marathon. You're not trying to achieve quick results and then coast. You're building a legacy that will continue long after you're gone. This long-term perspective changes how you approach every decision and every relationship. Legacy thinking is what motivated figures like John D. Rockefeller to build institutions that would continue serving his purposes long after his death. Rockefeller didn't just want to be wealthy during his lifetime. He acted as if he was divinely appointed to demonstrate how business success could be channeled into philanthropic service that would benefit generations. This perspective led him to create foundations and institutions that continue serving his original purpose more than a century after his passing. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose with legacy consciousness, you begin to make different choices about how you spend your time, energy, and resources. You invest in relationships that will outlast you. You build systems that will continue creating value after you're gone. You develop principles and practices that you can pass on to others who will carry your purpose forward. This multi-generational perspective is what gives your life ultimate meaning and significance. You're not just living for yourself or even for your immediate family. You're living as a link in the chain of divine purpose that extends from the beginning of time to the end of eternity. Your life becomes a sacred trust, a divine assignment that you're honored to fulfill during your brief time on this earth. The honor of divine assignment is what creates unshakable inner security and confidence. When you know that you're fulfilling your cosmic purpose, external circumstances lose their power to disturb your peace. Market crashes, political upheavals, relationship challenges, and health problems become temporary obstacles to navigate rather than existential threats to your well-being. This inner security based on divine alignment is what allowed figures like Marcus Aurelius to maintain philosophical composure while managing an empire under siege, or what enabled Nelson Mandela to emerge from 27 years of imprisonment with his spirit unbroken and his purpose strengthened rather than diminished. The source of their strength wasn't superhuman willpower or exceptional genetics. It was the unshakable knowledge that they were fulfilling divine assignments that were larger than their personal comfort or convenience. When you possess this level of certainty about your purpose, temporary hardships become opportunities to demonstrate divine character rather than reasons to abandon your mission. Character development through purposeful adversity is one of the most powerful aspects of acting as if you're guided by God's purpose. When challenges arise, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "How is this preparing me to better serve my divine purpose?" This shift in perspective transforms every difficulty into a growth opportunity, every setback into a setup for comeback. The alchemy of adversity into advantage is what separates those who are defeated by challenges from those who are strengthened by them. When you act as if you're guided by divine purpose, you develop what we might call transcendent resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks stronger and wiser than before. This resilience isn't based on denial or positive thinking alone. It's based on the deep knowing that everything in your life is conspiring to help you fulfill your divine assignment. Even apparent failures and disappointments are perfectly designed to develop the character, skills, and wisdom you'll need to serve at higher levels. The trust in divine timing that comes from this understanding eliminates much of the anxiety and frustration that plague people who are trying to force outcomes through personal effort alone. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you can work with passionate intensity while remaining detached from specific timing and methods. You know that your genuine desires aligned with divine purpose will manifest in perfect timing through perfect means. This paradox of passionate detachment is what allowed great achievers to maintain peak performance without the emotional roller coaster that comes from being attached to specific outcomes. They could give their absolute best effort while trusting that the results would unfold according to divine wisdom rather than human impatience. The practical application of passionate detachment in your daily life begins with what we might call outcome independence. You commit fully to your purposeful actions while releasing attachment to exactly how and when results will appear. This doesn't mean you don't have preferences or goals. It means you hold them lightly enough that you can adjust your methods without abandoning your mission. Outcome independence is what allows you to take massive action without the paralysis that comes from fear of failure. When you're attached to specific outcomes, the possibility of not achieving them creates anxiety that interferes with your performance. But when you're committed to the process of serving your divine purpose regardless of immediate results, you can take bold action with inner peace. This inner peace, amidst outer action, is the hallmark of those who have mastered the art of acting as if they're guided by God's purpose. They possess what we might call dynamic serenity, the ability to move through the world with powerful effectiveness while maintaining spiritual equilibrium. Dynamic serenity is what made figures like Gandhi so effective in creating social change. Gandhi could engage in intense political action while maintaining the inner stillness of a contemplative monk. He could confront powerful opponents while radiating the compassion of a saint. He could endure persecution while expressing the joy of someone fulfilling their deepest calling. The integration of action and contemplation, of service and serenity, of power and peace, is the ultimate expression of acting as if you're guided by divine purpose. You become a force for positive change in the world while remaining centered in eternal truth. You create lasting impact while maintaining lasting peace. This is the destination toward which all our exploration has been leading. The realization that acting as if you're guided by God's purpose isn't just a success strategy or a motivational technique. It's a way of being that transforms you into who you were always meant to become and empowers you to do what you were always meant to do. When you reach this level of integration, you no longer need to remember to act as if you're guided by divine purpose because it has become your natural way of being. You no longer struggle with motivation because you're powered by infinite intelligence. You no longer wonder about your worth because you know you're fulfilling a cosmic assignment. You no longer fear the future because you trust in divine timing and divine provision. You have become what the mystics called a divine human, what the philosophers called a wise person, and what we might simply call someone who is fully alive. You are living the life you were created to live, expressing the gifts you were meant to share, and fulfilling the purpose for which you came into existence. This is your inheritance. This is your destiny. This is the magnificent life that awaits you when you finally, fully, completely act as if you're guided by God's purpose. Because the ultimate truth is this: you are guided by God's purpose. You always have been, and you always will be. The only question is whether you'll acknowledge this truth and live from it, or continue pretending that you're separate from the divine intelligence that created you and sustains you every moment of every day. The choice, as always, is yours. But now you know what's possible. Now you understand the path. Now you have the tools, the examples, the inspiration, and the understanding you need to step fully into the extraordinary life that has been waiting for you all along. Act as if you're guided by God's purpose and discover that you always were. But there's one final dimension to this truth that we must explore together, because it's this dimension that will determine whether you simply understand these principles intellectually or actually transform your life through their application. This final dimension is what I call the courage of divine conviction, and it's what separates those who merely think about purposeful living from those who actually live it. The courage of divine conviction is the willingness to act on your divine guidance, even when it doesn't make sense to others, even when it seems risky or unconventional, even when you can't see the complete path ahead. It's the courage that led Noah to build an ark when there were no signs of rain, that moved Moses to confront Pharaoh despite his speech impediment, that inspired David to face Goliath with only a sling and stones. In our modern context, this same courage manifests as the willingness to leave secure but unfulfilling jobs to pursue your true calling, to start businesses that solve meaningful problems, even when the market isn't proven, to speak truth, even when it's unpopular, to invest in relationships and projects that serve your divine purpose, even when the immediate returns aren't obvious. Steve Jobs embodied this courage when he dropped out of college to follow his passion for technology and design. Jobs didn't have a business plan or a guaranteed path to success, but he acted as if he was divinely appointed to revolutionize how humans interact with technology. This sense of divine mission gave him the courage to make decisions that seemed insane to conventional business wisdom, but proved to be precisely what the world needed. Jobs' approach to innovation reveals a crucial aspect of divine courage. It often requires you to act before you have complete information or universal approval. Divine guidance doesn't usually come with detailed blueprints and risk assessments. Instead, it comes as inner knowing, as passionate inspiration, as undeniable conviction that you must move in a certain direction even when you can't see the destination clearly. This willingness to act on partial information while trusting in divine guidance is what the ancient philosophers called faith. But it's not blind faith. It's intelligent faith backed by the understanding that infinite intelligence knows things your finite mind cannot comprehend. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you learn to trust divine wisdom even when it contradicts human logic. The development of divine discernment is essential for distinguishing between genuine divine guidance and wishful thinking or fear-based impulses. True divine guidance has certain characteristics. It feels peaceful, even when it's challenging. It serves not just your interests, but the greater good. It calls forth your highest capabilities, and it creates positive outcomes, even if the path is difficult. False guidance, on the other hand, usually appeals to ego, creates anxiety or desperation, serves only selfish interests, and leads to outcomes that harm yourself or others. Learning to distinguish between these voices is one of the most important skills you can develop as someone who is learning to act as if you're guided by divine purpose. The practice of divine discernment begins with what we might call spiritual silence, regular periods of quiet reflection where you step away from the noise and urgency of daily life to listen for the still, small voice of divine guidance. This isn't necessarily meditation in the formal sense, though it can be. It's simply creating space in your life for wisdom to emerge. During these periods of spiritual silence, you're not trying to force insights or manufacture guidance. Instead, you're creating conditions where divine wisdom can naturally surface. You're tuning your inner receiver to frequencies that are usually drowned out by the static of busyness, worry, and external demands. The insights that emerge from this practice often surprise people with their simplicity and clarity. Divine guidance rarely comes as complicated strategies or overwhelming assignments. More often, it comes as simple next steps, gentle corrections, or clear priorities that help you align your actions with your highest purpose. For example, you might receive guidance to have an important conversation with someone, to pursue a particular learning opportunity, to simplify your schedule so you can focus on what truly matters, or to take better care of your physical health so you can serve more effectively. These insights might seem mundane, but they're often precisely what you need to move closer to fulfilling your divine assignment. The key is to act on these insights promptly and completely. Divine guidance is like a muscle that strengthens with use and weakens with neglect. When you consistently follow the guidance you receive, you become increasingly sensitive to divine direction. When you ignore or rationalize away your guidance, you gradually lose your ability to distinguish divine wisdom from mental noise. This principle of prompt obedience to divine guidance is what made biblical figures so effective despite their human limitations. When they received divine direction, they acted immediately and completely, even when the instructions seemed strange or difficult. Their willingness to trust and obey divine guidance despite their fears and doubts is what made them conduits for miraculous results. The same principle applies in your life today. When you receive clear guidance about actions you should take to serve your divine purpose, your response determines whether you continue receiving guidance or whether the communication gradually fades. Divine intelligence doesn't waste time giving direction to those who won't act on what they receive. This brings us to one of the most challenging aspects of acting, as if you're guided by God's purpose: the willingness to disappoint people whose expectations conflict with your divine assignment. Many people struggle with this because they've been conditioned to seek approval and avoid conflict. But divine purpose often requires you to choose divine approval over human approval. Jesus demonstrated this principle when he disappointed his family's expectations about his career path, when he challenged religious leaders despite their opposition, and when he continued his mission despite knowing it would lead to crucifixion. His commitment to divine purpose was stronger than his desire for human approval, and this commitment is what made his life eternally significant. The same choice faces you regularly, though perhaps not as dramatically. You might need to disappoint family members who want you to pursue a safe career when your divine purpose calls you to entrepreneurship. You might need to challenge colleagues who are content with mediocrity when your purpose demands excellence. You might need to end relationships that drain your energy and distract you from your mission. These choices aren't easy, but they're necessary for anyone who is serious about fulfilling their divine assignment. The temporary discomfort of disappointing others pales in comparison to the permanent regret of disappointing yourself and your Creator by playing small and settling for less than your divine potential. The strength to make these difficult choices comes from what we might call eternal perspective, the ability to evaluate decisions based on their long-term significance rather than their immediate comfort or popularity. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you develop the capacity to endure short-term discomfort for long-term fulfillment. Eternal perspective is what enabled abolitionists like William Wilberforce to spend decades fighting slavery despite massive opposition and repeated defeats. Wilberforce acted as if he was divinely appointed to end the slave trade, and this sense of cosmic mission gave him the persistence to continue when others would have quit. His eternal perspective allowed him to see temporary setbacks as steps toward ultimate victory. The cultivation of eternal perspective requires regular reflection on the ultimate significance of your choices and actions. Instead of asking only, "What will make me happy today?" also ask, "What will matter in 10 years? What will I be proud of on my deathbed? What legacy do I want to leave? How can my actions today serve generations yet unborn?" These questions shift your decision-making from immediate gratification to long-term significance, from personal comfort to divine purpose, from temporal success to eternal impact. They help you align your daily choices with your deepest values and highest calling. The alignment between daily actions and eternal purpose is what creates what we might call integrated authenticity, where who you are, what you believe, how you act, and what you create all flow from the same divine source. This integration eliminates the exhausting internal conflicts that plague people who are trying to serve multiple masters with conflicting demands. When you achieve integrated authenticity through acting as if you're guided by God's purpose, you discover a level of inner peace and outer effectiveness that most people never experience. You're no longer torn between competing priorities, because you have one ultimate priority that organizes and prioritizes everything else. You're no longer confused about decisions because you have clear criteria for evaluation. You're no longer drained by internal conflicts because all aspects of your being are aligned toward the same divine purpose. This alignment creates what ancient traditions called the unified life, where your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions all flow from the same source and move toward the same destination. The unified life is the opposite of the fragmented existence that characterizes most modern people, who feel pulled in multiple directions without a clear center or organizing principle. The unified life is what made figures like Albert Schweitzer so remarkably effective across multiple fields. Schweitzer was simultaneously a theologian, musician, physician, and humanitarian, because all these roles served his fundamental purpose of demonstrating reverence for life. His diverse activities weren't scattered interests, but different expressions of the same divine calling. You can achieve the same kind of integration by ensuring that all your major activities and relationships serve your fundamental divine purpose, even if they express it in different ways. Your work, your family relationships, your community involvement, your creative pursuits, and your spiritual practices can all become different facets of the same purposeful life. This integration doesn't mean you have to do everything perfectly or never experience internal conflicts. It means that you have a clear organizing principle that helps you resolve conflicts and align your choices with your highest calling. When decisions are difficult, you can ask, "Which option best serves my divine purpose?" The answer usually becomes clear quickly. The clarity that comes from having a divine organizing principle is one of the greatest gifts of acting as if you're guided by God's purpose. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by infinite possibilities and competing demands, you have a clear framework for making decisions. Instead of wondering about your identity and worth, you know who you are and why you're here. Instead of being anxious about the future, you trust that divine intelligence is orchestrating circumstances for your highest good and greatest service. This trust in divine orchestration is what the ancient Stoics called amor fati, love of fate, the acceptance that everything in your life is perfectly designed to help you fulfill your cosmic assignment. When you act as if you're guided by God's purpose, you develop the capacity to see divine wisdom in all circumstances, even those that initially appear negative or challenging. The ability to find divine purpose in all circumstances is perhaps the ultimate test of whether you truly believe you're guided by God's purpose or whether you only accept this belief when it's convenient. True divine alignment means trusting that everything in your experience is somehow serving your ultimate purpose, even when you can't understand the connection. This doesn't mean you become passive or accept harmful situations without action. It means you respond to all situations from the perspective of someone who is fulfilling a divine assignment. You ask, "How can I serve my divine purpose through this situation? What is this experience teaching me? How is this preparing me for greater service?" These questions transform every experience into an opportunity for growth, service, and divine expression. Nothing is wasted when you're acting as if you're guided by God's purpose. Every joy becomes a celebration of divine goodness. Every challenge becomes a classroom for divine wisdom. Every relationship becomes an opportunity for divine love. This transformation of perception is what creates the miraculous life that appears extraordinary to others but feels natural to those who understand divine purpose. When you consistently act as if you're guided by God's purpose, miracles become normal because you're aligned with the creative power of the universe. The miraculous becomes normal not because you're manipulating universal laws for personal benefit, but because you're cooperating with universal intelligence for divine purposes. You're not trying to get the universe to serve you, you're allowing yourself to serve the universe's highest intentions through your unique gifts and calling. This cooperation with universal intelligence is what creates the effortless effectiveness that characterizes those who have mastered the art of acting as if they're guided by divine purpose. Their actions appear effortless because they're flowing with divine current rather than swimming against it. Their success appears miraculous because they're operating from divine wisdom rather than human cleverness alone. But this effortless effectiveness only comes after years of disciplined alignment, conscious choice, and consistent action. The masters make it look easy because they've done the hard work of learning to distinguish divine guidance from personal preference, of choosing divine approval over human approval, of acting from eternal perspective rather than immediate gratification. You're now equipped with the understanding, examples, and practical guidance you need to begin this transformational journey. You know what it means to act as if you're guided by God's purpose. You've seen how this principle has worked in the lives of history's greatest achievers. You understand the psychological and spiritual mechanisms that make this approach so powerful. Most importantly, you know that this isn't just a motivational concept or success strategy. It's the fundamental truth about your existence. You are guided by God's purpose. You always have been. The question is whether you'll acknowledge this truth and live from it, or continue pretending that you're separate from the divine intelligence that created you and sustains you. The choice is always yours, but now you're making that choice with full awareness of what's at stake. You're choosing between a life of limitation and a life of limitless possibility, between existence and authentic living, between surviving and thriving, between being a victim of circumstances and being a co-creator with divine intelligence. Choose wisely, choose boldly, choose today. Act as if you're guided by God's purpose, and watch as your life transforms into the masterpiece it was always meant to become. Champions, your mind has been forged a little stronger today, but the real test isn't what you learned, it's what you do with it. Take action, dominate your day, and remember, we're not just building better thoughts, we're forging unstoppable lives. The forge doesn't stop, and neither do you. If this episode hit you where it counts, subscribe to Mental Forge Academy and join the Brotherhood of Champions who refuse to settle for ordinary. Go transform, strike while the mind is hot.